Good morning, everyone. I trust you can hear me. Uh, in fact, when I went to unmute myself to ring the bell, I saw that I was already unmuted, so I don't know how long I'd been unmuted. Hopefully, I wasn't like talking to myself or who knows what. Um, anyway, so this morning I want to tell a story, and it's a bit of a long story, and it's actually quite a complicated and I think very interesting story. And so parts of it I'm going to shorten, condense. Um, Parts of it I might change a little bit just to get through the whole thing. But it's a story of two brothers, two very famous brothers actually in the history of Buddhism, Asanga and Vasubandhu. And so Asanga was the older brother, and he was a very important teacher of Mahayana Buddhism, and this is in India. This is, I don't know, let's see, not quite 2,000 years ago, but close to that. Kind of at the height of Mahayana Buddhism in India. And so Asanga was very much a part of this Mahayana Buddhist movement in India, but not all Buddhists were. And in fact, Asanga's brother Vasubandhu was a very harsh critic of Mahayana Buddhism. And you might say, why would anybody criticize Mahayana Buddhism? Mahayana Buddhism is all about, compassion and good stuff like that, right? Emptiness. Why would anybody criticize Mahayana Buddhism? And one of the main criticisms that people do make, Buddhists who are not practitioners of Mahayana style Buddhism, they say we make stuff up. In particular, all of these things that we call sutras, the Lotus Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra, they say those weren't taught by the Buddha. Those are just things that people made up later and then attributed to the Buddha. Um, and so that was Vasubandhu's opinion. Anyway, so I'm going to start with that's just kind of the background of these two brothers. So Asanga got an idea once that he wanted to do a retreat, and he didn't set a limit to how long his retreat was going to be. It was a solo retreat that he was going to do, and he had a very specific goal, and his goal was to obtain a vision of Maitreya, the future Buddha. And this might sound a bit odd, but this is actually a thing in Buddhism, people having visions of various Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In fact, the Kanzeon chant that we do in our Sangha, this was originally taught in a dream where Avalokiteshvara appeared in a dream to someone and taught this person the Kanzeon chant. So that's one kind of vision. My teacher, our teacher, Zen Master Degak, once had he doesn't always talk about this, but he does every once in a while. He'll just kind of mention the fact that he once had a vision in which Avalokiteshvara appeared to him while he was doing a retreat. And so Asanga wanted to see and receive teachings directly from Maitreya. And so he went up to a mountaintop retreat, so doing probably some little shack up on top of a mountain, and did this retreat with the goal of obtaining a vision of Maitreya. And it didn't happen. And it didn't happen. And it didn't happen. And for 3 years he practiced, and Maitreya didn't appear to him, and so he gave up. And on his way down the mountain, and this is one of the places where I'm going to kind of shorten this story, because he went down the mountain, and something happened that convinced him to go back and continue his retreat. But it still didn't happen. And it didn't happen, and it didn't happen. And another 3 years went by, and he gave up again. And again, when he was heading down the mountain. So each of these times that Asanga heads back down the mountain is a whole story in and of itself of what happened. But again, something happened. And then another 3 years went by, and he gave up again. And he headed down the mountain again. And something occurred. Well, just to give one example, one of these times when he was going down the mountain, he saw an old man sitting by the side of the road with a what looked like a pile of just pieces of scrap metal on one side, and a pile of needles on the other side. And Asanga asked him what he was doing, and he had a cloth, and he was rubbing these pieces of scrap metal to make needles with. And Asanga said, "You can't. It's impossible." And the old man said, "Well, it does take a long time." So that's one of the and Asanga realized he was giving up too soon and went back up the mountain. Okay, so this happened 3 times, and then a fourth time. This 12 years he's been up on this mountain, and he says, "That's it, I'm out of here." Again, and again, he meets somebody and has some interaction with them. And suddenly, Asanga realizes that this person that he's talking to is Maitreya. And he says, "You're Maitreya. Why didn't you, show up before? Why did it take so long?" And Maitreya said, "Well, this is actually the 4th time that you've seen me, but you didn't see me. This is the 4th time that I appeared to you, but only now do you see me." And so from then on, Asanga was able to talk to Maitreya. And Asanga went on to write 5 very famous books that he said he didn't write. He said these are teachings that were given to him directly by Maitreya. And so to Asanga's brother, Vasubandhu, this was just another example of how these Mahayana Buddhists make stuff up. That now, in addition to all of the sutras, all these sutras that people have made up and then attributed to Buddha, the historical Buddha teaching these things, now his own brother, Asanga, was writing books and claiming that these were actually written by Maitreya. But then time went on, and Asanga became very ill, and was dying. And over the years, he had time and again tried to win his brother over to the Mahayana point of view, but with no luck. And so now, when he was dying, basically Vasubandhu just would never listen to his brother. He said, "No, this is Mahayana Buddhism. It's all just stuff that you've made up. You should get rid of, you should just practice Buddhism according to what the Buddha originally taught, not according to all this stuff that was added later on. But Vasubandhu, the younger brother, who criticized Mahayana Buddhism, found that with his older brother dying, he could no longer just blow him off. He could no longer just refuse to even consider what his brother was trying to tell him. And so for the first time, he really listened. And now, when his dying brother explained Mahayana Buddhist teaching to him, it suddenly made perfect sense. And I don't actually, it is, I'm condensing the story here quite a bit. But essentially now it was Vasubandhu's turn to say to Asanga, why didn't you explain it to me like this before? And Asanga said, this is exactly what I've been telling you all along, but only now are you listening. And so at this point, Vasubandhu is filled with remorse. And he says, because of all the terrible karma that I have produced for myself by my bad actions, by my bad speech, criticizing Mahayana Buddhism, the only thing I can think of to make things right, to atone for that, is to kill myself. And the Sangha said, no, that's we've all, whether you're a Mahayana Buddhist or any other, we've all taken the vow to not kill, and that includes killing yourself. You can't do it, because then you would just be adding even more bad karma to what you already have. And Vasubandhu said, oh, okay, all right, so I won't kill myself, but I'm going to cut my tongue out, because it was with my tongue that I created all this bad karma, and so my tongue will pay for it now. And the Sangha said, no, don't do that. In fact, instead of punishing your tongue for all of the bad speech that you've committed over the years, and attacking and criticizing Mahayana Buddhism, you should use your tongue to fix your karma. And so I'll teach you a mantra that you can do that will, if you practice this mantra very diligently, then you will eventually be able to make up for or cleanse, purify your bad karma. And so Asanga taught his brother the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani, which goes a little bit like, I'll just give you the first, opening stanzas of it. Namo Bhagavate Trilokya Prativisistaya Buddhya Bhagavate Tadiyata Om Vishuddhaya Vishuddhaya Asama Sama Samantava Basa Sparana Gati Gahana. And it goes on like that. And you can do the whole thing. If you do it fast, you can do it in about a minute. It's approximately kind of the same length as the Great Dharani that Zen Master Sung San practiced and taught to us. If not to us directly, then by way of Zen Master Degak or other teachers who were trained by Zen Master Sung San. And actually, Zen Master Sung San usually didn't talk too much about, he didn't usually engage in explaining the great Dharani, but sometimes he would say that this was a Dharani used to purify bad karma. Anyway, so Asanga taught his brother this Dharani, the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani, and so Vasubandhu then practiced this Dharani very, very, very diligently. And of course, soon Asanga died, and Vasubandhu continued practicing the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani. And then one day, actually one night, in the middle of the night, he would often practice late into the night and then sleep very little and get up early in the morning and just all day and into the night recite this Dharani. And while he was doing this one night, Maitreya appears to him. And Maitreya looked confused. Maitreya looked at Vasubandhu and said, "Wait a minute, you're Vasubandhu." He says, "I know you. You are a terrible person. You are a critic of the Mahayana. You have accumulated, terrible karma from your criticism of the Mahayana teachings." Seems like I always end up giving it's a particularly loud truck just passed by in front of my house. Anyway, oh yeah. So Maitreya was confused and angry and said, what are you doing? And Vasubandhu explained that he was reciting the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani in order to make up for his bad karma, criticizing the Mahayana, so that he too could enter the Bodhisattva path. And Maitreya said, "Look, there's no way you're going to be able to enter the Maitreya." The Maitreya told Vasubandhu, "There's no way you can enter the Bodhisattva path in this lifetime because of the terrible karma that you've accumulated." And Vasubandhu said, "I didn't listen to my brother for too long, and then when I finally did listen to him, I'm not going to go. I'm going to trust what he taught me, and he taught me that if I recite this Dharani, I will be able to purify my bad karma and enter the Bodhisattva path even in this lifetime." So eventually, Vasubandhu did not only enter the Bodhisattva path himself. Vasubandhu actually became one of the ancestors of the Zen tradition. He's considered the 21st ancestor. So the Bodhidharma was the 28th ancestor in the Zen tradition. And one of the things that Zen people did in China was they came up with lineage lists so that they could trace their lineage, their their line of teachers all the way back to Shakyamuni Buddha. And when they made up these lists, and parts of the list quite possibly were just made up, and they would one of the people that they chose to be, historically an ancestor of the Zen tradition in India was Vasubandhu. So Vasubandhu actually shows up in the a very nice collection of stories. And sometimes it's viewed as a koan collection, but it's the Denko Roku, I think is the way it's pronounced, which is the Soto Zen, the traditional set of stories in Soto Zen that trace Keizan, who's a very central figure in Soto, who came a little bit after Dogen, traces Keizan back to Dogen, and Dogen back to Bodhidharma, and Bodhidharma back to Shakyamuni Buddha. And in that set of stories, Vasubandhu is designated as the 21st ancestor. So this is a story about the importance of friendship. These two brothers, they were brothers are a special kind of friend. It's a story about the importance of listening, and it's also a story about the importance of try mind. Zen Master Sung San used to teach try for 10,000 years nonstop. And try mind is only really necessary when we're not seeing results, when it feels like we're not getting anything from our practice. That's when try mind is really most necessary. It's also a kind of try mind that is necessary when we feel like our practice is getting some results. But really, when your practice is working, or it appears to be working for you, that's when you really need don't know mind. So if you think your practice isn't working, keep doing it. Keep going back up the mountain. If you think your practice is working, that can be even a bigger problem. And that's when you really need don't know mind, which is, so where does don't know mind figure into this story? A don't know mind, it really shows up when Vasubandhu finally was willing to listen to his brother, Asanga. He knew that these Mahayana Buddhist people were just making stuff up. He knew that the original teachings of the Buddha didn't have any of this Mahayana Buddhism stuff in it. He knew that he was right and they were wrong. But he couldn't, because of the love that he had for his brother who was dying, he had to let that go. He had to listen to his brother, and when he did, he was able to hear the teachings of the Mahayana for the first time. So try mind, don't know mind. Whether things are working, or seem to be working, or seem to not be working, I think the most important thing is to keep going. Anyway, thanks for listening to this talk about Asanga and Vasubandhu, and try mind and don't know mind. And and thank you for listening. 5-minute break.